everyone, this is Pocket here with MMORPG with the next game face. Now today I'm going to talk about a European court ruling saying that you, the user, can resell your games and game companies can't stop you from doing so. There's a new Game of Thrones MMO that's been announced. And finally, feminist and known video gamer Anita Sarkeesian comes under a lot of hate from online trolls for her videos. So a new law was passed in Europe that basically allows the redistribution or resell of any game that is digitally distributed to its users. So basically it says once the game company, the right holder, sells the game to a person, to the user, that user then has the right to resell the game to someone else that's interested in it. And the game company or the right holder cannot punish them or prohibit them from doing so, even if it's in the EULA. In the law it also says that despite there being any EULA or anything that would prohibit the user from doing that, the law takes precedent over that EULA and they cannot prevent that user from doing that. Now this does affect game companies like Steam, Origin, etc. and this is just in Europe at the moment, but you know, put in your mind, what if this came to North America? And that's sort of why I'm covering this, because it is possible that it would come to America, and so that would be a huge ordeal if it did come to America. Steam is going to have to rethink the way it distributes its games, and Steam is not only in Europe, but it's also in North America, and so it's curious, is it going to just revamp itself in Europe? It is possible, it probably will just do, you know, we're going to remodel ourselves in Europe to fit this law. Or is it going to just do it all over and just be like, whatever, we might as well just do this for everybody if we're going to have to do it anyway. What if North America changes? I imagine they wouldn't do that necessarily for North America at the moment, because I also imagine that they're going to be losing a lot of money by basically having to allow the users to resell their games, and then they're not, you know, getting purchased directly off of Steam. Instead, they're getting purchased from users from Steam. It also states in this law that whenever the game is transferred to a new user, the right holder has to allow that access to that game for download. And so it's going to have to be able to tell, oh, you bought the game from that person, and so you need access to go ahead and download the game from us. A lot of these games, you download them from the internet, from the company's website, and then you have to buy the game afterwards, at least for MMOs. And so that's not going to be a big deal because they already have access to the download. It's just that for MMOs, they're going to have to make it easier to transfer the account to another person. But for games like Steam, Steam's going to have to provide a download for that person. And so I'm wondering if basically if I transferred my game to someone else, then I would no longer have the game, but they would have it, and it would somehow pick up that they have it and allow them to download it. So what does that mean for us? At the moment it means nothing. It means nothing because it's not a law here. It's just a law in Europe, and it will affect some game companies that are based in Europe, but it won't affect companies that are in America. If it did affect companies in America, what would that mean? Well, it would affect a ton of game companies because there are quite a few in America. Online games would have to rethink the way they digitally distribute their games. It would no longer be illegal to sell your level 85 fully geared Ret Paladin that's collecting dust and you no longer play. And companies would have to rethink the models that they use to help prevent them from losing a ton of money by basically saying, how are we going to not lose a whole bunch of money? We're going to have to rethink these models so that way when user A sells to user B, we don't lose money on that. And companies would have to make it easier to transfer an account from point A to point B. And so that's really important to think about because that's a lot of change. And I don't know, what do you think? Do you think that this is a good change? If it came to America, would this be a good change? Or would this be a negative one? The next piece of news is, well, it's about Game of Thrones, the MMO. I don't really have much to say on this besides Game of Thrones, the MMO. It seems like the perfect setting, and I'm really curious how well it's going to do. I know that I read a lot of comments on it and they were relatively pessimistic about the quality of the game. There are also people who get really into the lore and they don't necessarily want to play the game because they don't want their idea of the game to be ruined, and that certainly makes sense because that would make me curious. But it sounds like it's going to have a lot of PvP. It's going to be a siege, a keep siege type game, and I'm curious to see how they do this and if they make it different from other keep siege games that are out there right now. What do you think? And the last piece of news is about Anita Sarkeesian. She is a feminist gamer that writes a lot about stereotypes of women in gaming. And she specifically started coming under a lot of hate whenever she made a Kickstarter page to raise money for her video series called Tropes vs. Women in Video Games. And basically what she's going to do is she's going to point out the 5 top stereotypes used in video games. And it includes, you know, 5 very common tropes or themes that you see with women in regards to women in video games. And it sounds like something that's pretty interesting. However, she hasn't come out with it yet. And so that raises a question of why is she getting trolled and hated on so much when she hasn't even raised her opinion about it really. She said she has various online videos on YouTube that you can find, and they're interesting and they're certainly engaging, and she raises a lot of good points. At the same time though, like I said, she hasn't necessarily came out with a video series. She just stopped raising money for it. She did get a huge backing, and it probably was partially due to the amount of hate and attention she got from this. And so, all in all, she came under a lot of scrutiny. She had horrible things made about her, horrible things said about her. She had people try to take down her web pages, spam Twitter and Facebook and various other sites trying to get her accounts closed for terrorism and hate speech and spam. And she got comment spammed, horrible things on her YouTube, to where she had to close some of the videos for comments because they were just so bad. However, at the same time, she did get a lot of publicity from this. And so it's really interesting that I think that it's going to be a cool thing that she does, and I certainly am curious to see what she has to say. Whether I agree or disagree is beyond the point, and 6,968 people agree with me. Those 6,968 people donated over $158,000. She only requested that she work up about $6,000 to start this video series, so let's just say she got well beyond what she expected. And certainly with good cause. And so I'm really excited that this actually turned out successful for her despite all the hate she got. And, you know, I wouldn't say that the hate was worth it. It certainly isn't worth it. It's never worth it to get hated on. But I'd say that in the end it paid off, literally. I mean, I guess the hate actually ended up doing the opposite. They brought a lot of attention to this woman that is, you know, she seems well-knowledge, she seems to make coherent and well thought out discussions, and even if you don't agree, you can't really hate on her for her opinions because it's like, well, you raised good points. I think it ended up being a success for her, and I look forward to her series, and I think you should check it out and see what you think.